So, one of the most important men in the world today is this man right here, Ibrahim Traore. He's awesome because he is carrying on the long Burkina Fasoan tradition of anti-colonial badassery. And he is the successor, in spirit at least, of this man, one of the greatest men to ever live, Thomas Sankara. And I thought today we'd go over a bit of Burkina Faso's long anti-colonial history because they're awesome and they deserve all the props for this. So the Burkinabe history of going against colonialism really kind of starts in the 1890s. So after the Berlin Conference, when Europe decided to just divide all of Africa between the European colonial powers, again, without asking if anyone of the colonized countries actually wants this, and France ends up getting a lot of West Africa, especially the area which is owned by the Mosi kingdoms. And the Burkinabe will be fighting against the French for like 20 years, and they're putting up strong resistance. It's only when the French start imposing really brutal tactics under the cover of World War One and take over the country. And then, of course, Burkina Faso's, or it's named Upper Volta, goes under the same legacy that every other colonial country endures under the French and British, which is massive resource extraction, forced labor, basically slavery, and huge oppression and erasure of their culture, and so on, so on. You know how this story goes by now, especially if you're watching my videos. This will go on until about the 1960s, 1958, I think, to be precise, when Upper Volta is given independence from the French Empire. But this, of course, is just France's transition into neocolonialism. The French control of the country is never lifted, and all the colonial things are still happening. There's still massive resource extraction. It's still labor theft, basically slavery. And they're just running the country into the ground to steal everything that isn't nailed down. 1960 until the mid-1980s, it'll just be a succession of Burkinabe puppet leaders that are basically just doing French rule in exchange for being allowed to hold on to power and have their own luxury in the country. This, of course, all changes in 1983 when Thomas Sankara leads a socialist coup against the government and declares Burkina Faso, which means the land of the upright people, I believe. And he will start implementing strong socialist policies. And his legacy is awesome. It's very short-lived, but it is awesome. His main points are he wants to gain economic sovereignty for Burkina Faso. So they reject the International Monetary Fund. They reject French colonial rule. They want to kick out the French bases. They want to boost all the local production, own all their own resources, nationalize all the resources, and basically let Burkina Faso be run by Burkina Fasoans. Another thing Sankara will do is start to create the people's militias and basically arming citizens against foreign intervention. He's basically creating the dictatorship of the proletariat. And this is with the intent to oppose the French when they inevitably come to reinvade the country and try and take their colony back. Another thing that Sankara will really champion is Pan-Africanism and the idea that all of the Western powers should be kicked out of all of Africa and the African people should unite into one big continent made up of African people for African people. This, of course, is a huge threat to the Western outlook on life, where the West needs to come into Africa to steal all the resources, and in order to do that, they have to say that Africa is underdeveloped and it needs Western guidance to truly prosper, which is, of course, horseshit. Another thing Sankara will do is huge social progress. He was one of the biggest champions of women's rights ever. He vaccinated the whole country. He had land reforms, so he got rid of the landed gentry and the elites and started spreading land amongst the workers who are actually working the fields. Like, he's a true socialist. Things are going really good in Burkina Faso until 1987 when the French and the CIA come together to coup Sankara. They murder him, dismember him, and they reinstall a Western puppet regime. Burkina Faso will then have to endure several more decades of neo-colonial nonsense. The French, of course, saying, we need our bases there to keep the country stable, and we're protecting the democratic government, which, of course, only means people can get elected as long as they completely champion and sustain French rule over the country. But you can't keep the Burkinabes down, and in 2022, Ibrahim Traore launches another coup just like Sankara, and he just picks up that legacy right where Sankara left off. One of the first things he does is expels the French troops from the country, ends the colonial military deals, Again, he rejects the IMF debt. So one of the things that the Western powers love to do to Africa is force huge debt onto the country to basically say, you must take all these loans from us, and when you can't pay them back, which of course you never will be able to because they're outrageous, we'll just take all your resources to pay for it. It seems fair to us. And that's what the IMF really does. Like, they keep these African countries in massive debt so they can steal all the resources. Ibrahim, of course, rejects that. Refuses to pay it. He's nationalising all of the resources, saying this belongs to Burkina Faso, not to France. Next, Ibrahim rebuilds the people's militias, just like Sankara, with the idea that the Western colonisers are going to come back, just as they did to Sankara, and they're going to be ready for them when they do. This is another reason why he also has an alliance with Mali and Nigeria. Ibrahim has nationalised resources. He has established a sovereign bank, so they're not using the euro or the US dollar. They're using their own money backed by their own gold. This is to give them economic independence. He's also picked up other Sankara policies. He's made all education free. He's made healthcare free. All of the industry is being taken over by nationalised companies, basically owned by the Burkina people. All of this is aimed at gaining complete financial independence from all of Europe and from America. Unsurprisingly, the Western media has portrayed Ibrahim as a warlord dictator who has destroyed Burkina Faso's democracy, which of course never existed. It was only pro-French government. Fake elections, the ones where they win like 99% of the vote. All this is sponsored by France and the CIA to make sure that all of those resources in Burkina Faso go straight to European companies. So the Western media portray him as a warlord dictator, but really he has done far more for Burkina Faso in the last 2 years than France has ever done for Upper Volta over the past century. So not only has Ibrahim not destroyed democracy, he's done the exact opposite. He is freeing the Burkinabe from the tyranny of neocolonialism and French and Western pillaging of the country. Like Sankara before him, knows that Burkina Faso's resources belong to the Burkina Fasoan people, Burkinabe people, not France, and not America. Ibrahim has reportedly had like 18 assassination attempts against him already, and everyone knows the West is behind it. Everyone knows that France and the CIA are behind it, and they're not going to stop until they kill him and reinstall a new puppet government, which is why a lot of people, myself included, are up in an uproar to defend this man. Hands off Burkina Faso. And they're going to keep trying to crush him, because from the Western point of view, they have to. Like, if Ibrahim is another Pan-Africanist, if he actually achieves his goal of Pan-Africanism, that ends capitalism. Like, capitalism needs to exploit all of Africa for the resources to keep capitalism going. And that's why they're going to keep trying to attack this man. But we say, hands off Burkina Faso. Anyway, something to think about.